The college was broke. It was facing death.
It had $0.
That which the government aids, it may regulate.
They weren't telling us that we did anything wrong. They just telling us we had to comply.
We answered the letters and directly opposed them, and that led to a lawsuit.
We are what we always have been, right? We're going to defend that.
Enables little Hillsdale to cast such a long shadow.
This case was, was cursed.
From its founding in 1844, Hillsdale College offered an education to anyone who wished to learn and prided itself on protecting the equal dignity of all its students, regardless of sex or race. In 1885, a former slave named Jared Maurice Arter became the first black student to graduate from Hillsdale. In 1915, America's first female cryptanalyst, Elizabeth Smith Friedman, graduated from Hillsdale before serving in both World Wars and using her extraordinary skill in code breaking to bring down a Nazi spy ring. In 1955, Hillsdale College's undefeated football team received an invitation to play in the prestigious Tangerine Bowl on the condition that they leave their black players at home. The team decided unanimously not to participate, but it cost them more than the opportunity of a lifetime.
And, that came at a time. The notoriety of a bowl game would be good for the college. And they gave that up. And I can't find any whimper of dissent from any coach, player, or person in the administration or in the faculty. The college was broke. It was facing death. It hired the 10th president of the college, J. Donald Phillips, a good man, to find some way to make it survive. And that means that it was old at that time. It was 22 years old, and it was facing death.
Back when my dad took over the college in 1952, Spike Hennessy from Hennessy's drugstore downtown was a big supporter of Hillsdale College. Well, when my dad took over, he didn't realize how bad a shape this college was in financially. I mean, it had $0. And so he always told me if he would have known ahead of time, he might not have taken the position. I think in 52, I think it was 52 that they voted by one vote, the board, to keep it open. And Spike Hennessy was a big part of that. But you can imagine giving out IOUs to professors and, not knowing where they're going to get paid. But my dad all along said, these people are going to get paid and we're going to go out and work to get it. And they did.
The college raised tuition and deferred maintenance in a struggle to make ends meet.
Inflation hit, growth was stagnant in the country, and the economic forces for colleges, they got in trouble. It's a little similar to things right now.
Meanwhile, the government faced trouble of its own. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite to orbit the Earth.
The Soviet Union now has, in the combined category of scientists and engineers, a greater number than the United States. And it is producing graduates in these fields at a much faster rate. Recent studies of the educational standards of the Soviet Union show that this gain in quantity can no longer be considered offset by lack of quality.
Fearing technological domination and desperate to outcompete the Soviets, the U.S. government sought to bring education in line with its national security priorities. With the National Defense Education Act of 1958, the government began offering federal student loans as an incentive for more Americans to pursue higher education. Colleges across the country started accepting these federal loans, but a committee of the Hillsdale College Board of Trustees voted unanimously not to do so.
As far as you know, are definitely going to college. And I see a show of hands, please. Okay? How many of you would like to go, but because of financial reasons, let us say, are not going?
The college was, again, nearing death, it feared, and there was a task force of the Board of Trustees, headed by the richest man on the board, and it came back with a recommendation that we take the federal money.
Basically, the richest man on the board was telling everybody that, you know, we have to take the money or we're going to go out of business. And I don't know, you know, what that is, but I get this vision of Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life, you know, telling George Bailey that he has to, you know, sell the bank or he's not going to survive.
The full Board of Trustees ultimately voted that the college should participate. In doing so, they adopted a position that guided their policy for more than 20 years.
We agree that a private college ought not to receive government aid, but it is our opinion that this is not government aid to the college, but to the student, and that we will regret it if we do not participate in the program.
And when it was offered, it made a crisis around here, because it was a new thing. People hadn't thought about it a lot. And the arrangement they worked out in the beginning was the student aid is aid to the students, not aid to the college. And that was the position from somewhere around 1960 until somewhere around 1974.
Proposals to accept direct federal aid to the college were all voted down, and in 1962, Hillsdale published its first Declaration of Independence.
Therefore, be it resolved that it be the decision of the Board of Trustees of Hillsdale College to reaffirm its historic independence and to resist subsidization of its affairs by the federal government. Acknowledging that the possibility of failure is a concomitant of independence, the trustees place their trust in God and in the dedication and generosity of students, alumni, and friends who share their views.
Within the next decade, the college would face change and pressure like never before, starting with the arrival of a new president.
So my dad retired in '71, and George Roach took over, Dr. Roach, and I just always remember him being so calm about everything. I mean, he had his own vision already.
By this time, the college's finances were greatly improved thanks to Phillips' work.
College was appreciably healthier in the late 70s than it was in the mid 60s when it initially faced the crisis of whether or not to take those funds. There was the first endowment campaign had occurred, and at that time I think we raised $30 million or something.
Less than a year after President Roche assumed his duties, Hillsdale's initial Declaration of Independence faced a revolutionary battle. In 1972, Congress passed Title IX, which paved the way for new federal demands on colleges.
No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance.
To promote equal opportunity for members of minorities and others who have been left behind.
Title IX prohibited any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance from discriminating on the basis of sex. Hillsdale already provided an equal education to both sexes, but now it would have to submit a form agreeing to comply with both Title IX and the regulations implementing it. The Department of Health, Education, and Welfare was tasked with creating these regulations, and its interpretation of Title IX was broad and controversial. A D.C. law firm with a track record of winning against the government began challenging CUE's regulatory overreach. One of the attorneys working for the firm was John M. Facciola.
The bill that will become what was now known as Title IX was introduced by Senator Bayh from Indiana. And what it will do will bar discrimination on the basis of sex. All right? The crucial words are in any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. They work on this premise. The premise they work upon is if any federal financial assistance is given to the college or university, the college or university in all of its operations is a program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. It follows as the ninth day all aspects of the administration of the university's life is subject to the regulations barring sexual discrimination.
Under the new regulations, every department at Hillsdale would have to comply with Title IX, even though the college itself received no direct government aid.
To comply with Title IX, you had to count people by race and sex, and given our founding and the fact that we would educate all, regardless of sex, race, or nationality, it seemed anathema. We'd never violated any such thing. They weren't telling us that we did anything wrong. They just telling us we had to comply.
The principal of Title IX was essentially guilty until proven innocent. Colleges had to submit a form promising to comply with both Title IX and Hughes regulation. If a college did not file this assurance of compliance, it would lose all federal funding, even if it was never accused of discrimination.
Again, that flies in the face of it. You know, usually you would not have to comply with something you didn't violate, and that is as a rule of law. I think that most of the students here understood that, some more so than others. Some were much more into the events of the day. I was kind of on that end of things, although I have to admit it was a little bit on my part more of a stick it to the man type of thing. You can't tell us what to do, so we'll show you.
What ended up happening is the federal government, as it does always, began to inquire about those colleges and universities that were taking money from the federal government. They instituted, as they sometimes do, a new requirement, and that was that, hey, you need to have certain demographics at your college. And no longer will it be on meritocracy, but it needs to be on the color of their skin. Well, we have a problem with that here at Hillsdale, a college that was founded in 1844 by abolitionists who had a problem with that, and certainly wanted to look at people not on the color of their skin, but the content of their character. So that clash, because at Hillsdale, it's about can you do the work, not what you look like.
We made a decision, the people who started the school made a decision in 1844 to accept all, right? Regardless of race, sex, or nationality. To provide all a literary, theological, and scientific education, right? What do you not understand? What do we not understand about all? All is everybody, right? And now, the ethos is flipped on its head, right? And you are expected to educate X amount of these and X amount of those and X amount of those, and in doing that, you do that at the expense of somebody else.
I don't think there is any such animal as a minority who is an individual, because I had gone through that kind of a phase earlier, about early junior high school, 7th, 8th grade. I said, well, I won't be black. I'll be an individual. And I tried being an individual. And it doesn't work because you're constantly reminded. You constantly ask, well, what do blacks think about this? What do, they're perceiving you as a black student, as a black person.
Even colleges that received no government funding had to comply if their students received federal financial aid.
I had student loans that were guaranteed by the government, right? That's the weird, so you didn't know that was a thing. You just thought that was okay. Why would you think otherwise, right? I'm the guy who's responsible for the loan. I'm the guy that's going to have to pay you back. I'm the guy who's filling out the application. Why does somebody who just receives that, who doesn't really have any responsibility for it, right? Well, why does it matter where it goes? Shouldn't I have that choice, and why should that affect something else?
On October 10, 1975, the Board of Trustees resolved not to comply with Title IX.
Hillsdale College will hold to its traditional philosophy of equal opportunity without discrimination by reason of race, religion, or sex, but such non-discrimination will be voluntary, thus preserving equality with dignity and encouraging friendship based on recognition of equal worth and mutual respect.
Roche publicized the resolution widely, and it sparked animosity from Hugh.
He didn't think the government ought, on partly economic grounds, he didn't think the government ought to control everything. And so it came along that under the Carter administration, it emerged that they were going to be aggressive about the regulations that accompany the federal money. And that aggression took the form of piercing the fact that these were loans taken out by individual students with federal support. If you accept those loans, then we can control you. So yeah, he objected to that on many grounds, and he was firm about it. They made announcements. You're going to have to comply if you're getting these loans. And for a while we ignored it. And then we got 2 or 3 really dirty letters. So now it's serious, and we answered the letters and directly opposed them, and that led to a lawsuit.
We meet President Roche. And President Roche, I don't know, by that time, has formed the decision to go to court to attack this excessiveness. We are retained for that purpose, and I and a lawyer named Gordon Kaufman have primary responsibility for the litigation.
Hillsdale sued the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare in federal court. Although Hillsdale lost, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed the lower court's decision. The new ruling acknowledged that Hillsdale was not even accused of discriminating against its female students. Hillsdale's victory would soon be overturned by the Supreme Court. Grove City College, a small liberal arts college outside of Pittsburgh, also refused to promise compliance. When aid to their students was terminated, Grove City sued in federal court but lost in the Third Circuit Court of Appeals.
But the school is proudly independent. It wanted no federal money and refused to fill out forms periodically assuring the government that it wasn't discriminating.
If we sign that piece of paper, we're convinced that then the government can claim jurisdiction over the whole institution.
Grove City, so we are in the same boat with those people, still are. And we both filed suit about the same time. They lost, and we won more than they did. I don't think we won a complete victory, but a significant victory. And so now you've got the classic thing to appeal to the Supreme Court. You have a difference at the circuit court level in court rulings. And since we were happier with our ruling, they were the ones who appealed, and we joined in that suit. And then, I like to say, if we'd had 5 more votes on the Supreme Court, we would have won.
In 1984, the Supreme Court handed down its decision in Grove City College versus Bell. The court ruled that only the specific programs receiving federal aid could be regulated, but it also held that funding to students counted as funding to the college's financial aid program. For all practical purposes, the ruling was a defeat. Hillsdale would still have to decide between complying and rejecting all federal aid. Hillsdale refused to compromise. President Roche went to the Board of Trustees and asked them to reaffirm their resolution not to comply with Title IX. Facing the uncertainty of competing against colleges taking more and more federal funds, the board knew freedom would come at a cost, but they upheld the resolution unanimously. In 1988, Congress put the nail in the coffin with the Civil Rights Restoration Act. The act required colleges receiving any federal funding to comply with the anti-discrimination requirements in all of their operations, not just in the programs receiving federal aid. President Ronald Reagan vetoed the bill, but Congress overrode his veto.
President Reagan's strong words on the subject today.
The truth is, this legislation isn't a civil rights bill. It's a power grab by Washington, designed to take control away from states, localities, communities, parents, and the private sector, and give it to federal bureaucrats and judges.
So it ended. Hillsdale was and is free, but its independence has meant hard work, risk, and sacrifice. Was the price of independence worth it? With the privilege of hindsight, it is clear that compliance too would have come at a heavy cost. Rather than become entangled in this complex web of regulations, Hillsdale College turned away all government funding.
Title IX today is something different than it was then. Title IX is about women in sports, especially, I think, today. But back then it was more comprehensive. And so, yeah, we didn't think that a private institution should have to be subjected to detailed federal regulation. And the regulation, by the way, today is very detailed. We don't have things like that in this college. The number of rules at Hillsdale College has been sharply reduced since I became its president, because I don't even believe in rules. I believe in goals.
The biggest thing I can say about the interaction between the professors and students here is it's really personal. This summer, my father had the unfortunate experience where the company he worked for was bought out by someone else, and his position was eliminated. That brought up a lot of questions about whether I would be returning for my senior year to Hillsdale. I called Dr. Blackstock and told him what the situation was and where I stood and what he thought I should do. He took time out to get on the phone and call people at the college and helped me to come back to school.
Among other things, this meant that Hillsdale could not accept the federal aid the federal government offered to veterans.
Under the GI Bill, a veteran who has served honorably and has served his country gets a full ride scholarship to any college or university in the United States. So that's a problem, right? Because we can't take that money because that's federal money. What we've done is that we have this what we call the Freedom Scholarship. And with the Freedom Scholarship, students, veteran students, can come to Hillsdale and it doesn't cost them anything to attend the college here. And then they take their GI Bill and they use it for grad school or medical school, wherever they want to use that for. But here, the money's not needed or even wanted. We have donors that have stepped up to the plate and have made it possible for us to take care of veterans here.
It's actually such a gift. It matches almost completely. So the Freedom Scholarship here covers tuition completely. I get $500 worth every semester for books. I get a living stipend per semester for housing. Obviously, having worked for the government, receiving their money is the same as a command. Everything that follows the money or precedes it is exactly what you have to do.
You're being reviewed on your merits as a student and not just kind of what are some of those like qualifiers that other colleges kind of have to meet. And so with that, we can get a really holistic education of the liberal arts.
I think it's an amazing place. And I think it's probably about the most important place in the country right now.
And so I guess the point would be this will be a place that will at least arm you to make the arguments and make the decisions to lead a good life and a life of principle in a world that says there aren't any principles. So, right? And you wonder why why nobody else does this. Well, I'll tell you, it's hard, right? It's a lot of work by a lot of people, but it's worth it. And you have the satisfaction at the end of the day that you know that you're doing something for the right reasons, but you're standing on principle.